Welcome to Private Club Radio, your weekly source for industry education, news and discussion. Broadcasting from Tampa, Florida, ladies and gentlemen, here is your host, Gabriel Aloisi.
What do you say to those members who are always complaining about the green speed or the club down the street has better fairways or better bunkers? What do you say to those guys? Well, we're going to learn what to say from the gentleman over at Golf Maintenance Solutions on today's edition of Board Chats, brought to you by Concert Golf Partners. It's a really intriguing chat that I have with these gentlemen, and I've just been fascinated by golf course maintenance for about the last 6 months, ever since I joined this Facebook group, really, which you'll hear me talk about during that interview. Now, before we bring those guys on, I want to remind you that this is the last week. This is your last call to pick up your copy of the ABCs of Plutonium Private Club Leadership at our special pre-order price. Head over to plutonium.club. That's the website where you can purchase the book at that special pre-order price. And you can actually download the first 2 samples on us. So you can check it out and see if it's for you. I think it will be, because it's really for all private club leaders out there. The wealth of information, the depth and breadth of what we cover in that book is unmatched. There's never been a book like it. We've got 16 contributors from all over the private club industry talking about every topic that you can imagine. So the website is plutonium.club. Get your free sample, see if it's for you, and I hope that you'll pick up your copy, not only for yourself, but for your board and for your committees.
And now it's time for Board Chats, presented by Concert Golf Partners. A behind-the-scenes look inside real boardrooms with special guest Peter Nanula.
Well, welcome to another edition of Board Chats presented by Concert Golf Partners. It's real-world experiences inside the club boardroom, so you can see exactly what goes down behind those doors. We're dealing with board strategy and management issues, and it's your behind-the-scenes look that's brought to you every month here on Private Club Radio by Concert Golf Partners, who bring capital and operating expertise to preserve and enhance private clubs. I'm joined, as always, by Peter Nanula. And Peter, how are things going at Concert, and what's new in your world? Lots of things happening.
Things are good. Lots of rain in California after wildfires, so you got to wonder. I'm looking out my window at, record rainfall. So I'm sure our guest today at Golf Maintenance Solutions can talk to us about some of the weather issues. But, all the usual, Gabe. Added another club in Florida, I think we mentioned recently. And so we're in the midst of the transition. Yeah, Plantation Golf and Country Club in Venice, Florida.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And then I wanted to have these guys at Golf Maintenance Solutions on today, because I figure if a company like ours has agronomy issues all the time, and I'm in boardrooms talking to Greens Committee members about agronomy, I would say the collective IQ about agronomy is about 0.
Yeah.
So let's get some guys who are really experts at agronomy on your show so we can, help to educate Greens Committee members, board members about the biggest asset every club has.
Yeah, I'm fascinating right now with agronomy and greenskeeping, because I joined this group on Facebook called Golf Course Maintenance, and it's just unbelievable the things that the greenskeepers and the maintenance crews go through on a daily basis. It's really eye-opening for me. Just they wake up and there's some new problem, something new disease on the grass, some animal that's attacked, some storm that's swept through, and it's unbelievable. And it's people all over the world. So right now I'm really interested in the subject, so I'm glad to have these guys on. So we have Dean Wochaski and Bill Nauroth of Golf Maintenance Solutions. And Bill and Dean, I'd love for you just to give us a little background on you guys and your company. Dean, you want to start off?
Yeah, thanks, Gabe. Our company has been in business really since 2003, so about 16 years. I've been in the business a long time. I started out in basically with a company in 1981 called American Golf Corporation, and of course they're on the west. They're a West Coast company, but we're across the country. And I worked with them for 19 years, and then Bill and I got together and started our company in 2003. We're still together, so still working together. Great company. We've gone from as much as 75 courses, and now we're currently in about 52. So continue to grow our company up and down based on the need at the properties throughout the country. So enjoy it. Love this business. Been in it a long time, longer than probably dirt itself. So, but I love the business itself too. So.
How about you, Bill? What's your background?
Well, as Dean said, I knew Dean when I worked also with a management company, American Golf, and was with them for 20-some years as a superintendent and a regional superintendent, and became a director of maintenance. Dean's been modest. He had 60-some clubs he oversaw for the company, and I had about the same. And then when Dean and I started the business up about 16 years ago, really we were trying to fill a need in the industry, we felt, for good agronomic advice to owners and to board members and to GMs to try to help support them through all the challenges that are on the golf courses.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, like I said, there seems to be quite a plethora of challenges. There's no lack of that. So I think you guys will probably be in business for a long time.
Well, I would think so.
Today, we're going to go through some of your top agronomy tips so that the greens committees out there, those folks sitting at the boardroom talking about the greens at their club, have some ideas of what some of the best practices are. So could you guys start off with give me some of your best tips here on best practices for greens?
Well, one of the things that we get questioned all the time is about green speed, and what that should be. And the course down the road is a 13 or 14, and why aren't we at that green speed? But when we look at green speed with superintendents or dig down on that, we make sure just as important what's below the ground, above the ground is also good too. But it's consistency. We want to make sure that if it's a private club, if it's one of Peter's clubs, that if they're supposed to be rolling 11, and 11 is that good speed, then make sure it's rolling 11 every day, so that a member or a guest comes into the property. It's not one day at 8, and it's one day at 13. You're not satisfied. But if you know if they're 11 every day, you show up at that club and play. That's really what the member or the guest is looking for. So you do all those inputs, all those different things to those greens, from verticutting to mowing height to top dressing to rolling, to make sure that you're achieving that 11. And I think that's really important when it comes to green speed. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Bill.
No, absolutely. I think it's when you look at golf courses in general, and certainly, Gabe, you alluded to it before, is that, the challenge is that every golf course is different. Everyone has different environmental conditions, maybe different turf types, things that a challenge that a superintendent is up against trying to make a green, as Dean talked about, green speed consistent. So, it's important for that superintendent to understand what that, expectation is, and then manage to that.
I've always told the greens chairman, I said, okay, they said, well, we want it faster. I always just tell them, I said, just remember, dirt rolls about 13 if you roll it out pretty good. So you don't want to get them to the point where you start losing a bunch of grass too.
Yeah, it's got to be a constant battle. And what about courses that have 27 or 36 holes? I got to imagine it might even be more of a battle at that point.
And I'll speak that a little bit. Certainly economy of scale, when you're doing 18 holes and you move into a 36-hole property or a 54-hole property, it does, compound the issues of things you have to look at. And because property of that size is spread out even more, you certainly have more environmental conditions you're looking for. But as Dean talked about, as long as you're consistent on your practices, cultural practices, and you don't sway one way or another at times, and you get those done, it helps the superintendent be more consistent with the green speeds or green conditions.
Yeah. I bet that one of the big complaints is probably like, well, the putting green doesn't run the same way the greens do out there. I hear that one quite a bit. I'm sure you guys do too.
Yeah, that's important. That's an important step from a superintendent's perspective, that they are matching up putting green speeds with golf course condition speeds. And those practices or those inputs should be exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn important. I think the one you hear a lot of is that, why does the golf course down the road not aerify as much as us?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's like that's one of those ones out there. And it all goes down to, I tell you how we kind of end up probably snuffing that a little bit, when we go into a property, very early in taking over a property, is we'll go in and do some benchmarking with physical property testing. So what we do is we test the soils below the ground at 1-inch increments, and it gives us the scientific information that we need to find out if this is an old green, a new green, based on how it drains, how the organic matter below the ground is, and that defines our cultural practices. So that tells us whether we need to aerify 2 times, 3 times, and it takes out all the subjectivity that you get in, the guy down the road is aerifying more or less. It tells you exactly based on that how much you should be aerifying, and I think that helps kind of snuff that then. You don't have to get into this subjective discussion, but it's more objective because it's based on the science then. And that really helps with the greens board when you start getting in there into a board meeting and how many times you aerify. So that's good information, and we use that on a lot of our properties.
I like that a lot. I know one of your other tips is to make the best and the most of the Green Committee meeting. So how do you recommend people go about doing that?
Interesting, because this is a good one, because a lot of times you get into it can get mundane, because again, you were talking about this earlier, that you can get real technical and then you kind of lose everybody. But we recommend, and we've done this with the Greens Committee and with the superintendent, of course, and gone right out on the golf course. So we do field trips. You take them out on the golf course, you go right to maybe one of the greens that's been talked about in the board meetings before the Greens Committee meetings, and you go to that green, you talk about what the inputs, the things that you do. We've gone into bunkers, played out of bunkers. We've gone into maintenance buildings. So you go and have your Greens Committee meeting right at the maintenance building in the lunchroom. So that way you get the Green Committee to understand what the superintendent's going through, whether it's size of building, whether it's infrastructure on the golf course. It's really a good way to kind of touch and feel what you talk about inside the clubhouse. So we thought that to be a good best practice.
I love that. I love that.
Dean, it's it can backfire also on you. And I say this in a funny way. We had a club that I was at that we were meeting out on one of the greens we were having a struggle with. And it was going to be a bigger meeting with kind of the same thing Dean talked about, traveling through the property. Well, we go out, the manager and I go out to the golf course, to the green, and here we have 40 members standing on this green that's struggling. So it was one of those situations like, hey, everyone come over here, come off this green, because they were adding to that issue.
Can't imagine. Well, that's great.
Someone to blame.
Yeah, the one of your next tips is to have an agronomy plan. I assume you walk into a lot of clubs and they're not operating with any type of plan. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, there's definitely some inconsistencies there, and I'm not going to mention clubs, but the highest of highest end clubs, we were interviewing for positions, and the one superintendent said something. We go, well, how do you make sure that you get your golf course better from the agronomy perspective each year? He goes, it's all up here, and he points to his head. And we go, okay. And this guy was a well-respected guy. So what we try to do is we try to get the superintendent to build an agronomy roadmap. So they build a greens, tees, fairways, and other, and they build that plan with products, fertility, chemicals, and they build that plan, each one of those features of the golf course, and then we'll steer it 15 degrees to the right or left each year based on what we see out in the field. Weather plays a big role in that, but you got to have that roadmap. So what if that superintendent leaves, and all of a sudden he takes his what he thinks is his plan with him? If you have an agronomy roadmap that's really part of the property, then that plan stays at the property, and the next superintendent can use some of that, or at least have good historical information. So we believe in that. All our superintendents at our properties certainly have that, and it's in a workbook fashion, and we use it a lot. So it helps us.
Peter, do you guys have some of those types of plans at your clubs?
Yeah, we do. I would say early on when we met Dean and Bill's group, that was one of the key things that we learned. I mean, we have great supers who are well-educated and have done a great job at a lot of different golf courses all over the country, and we get best practices from all of our guys. But I would say the implementation of consistent agronomic plans is definitely an advantage that a company like ours has, whereas you go, like they're saying, go to a lot of clubs that I meet with, and they always say the same thing. We have the best superintendent in the state.
Yeah.
We have the best golf course in the state. Just don't mess it up. And then we get in there and we find out things like Dean and Bill are saying. There is no plan. They're not maintaining certain longer-term cultural practices, and all of a sudden you've got, root system issues that come back to haunt, and things that these guys can talk to better than I can. But having a consistent plan, I would think, is lesson number one for greens committees.
Yeah.
And a good plan is not spraying every 5 days. So your plan needs to have a balance of agronomy, financial, so that that person is just not doing whatever the salesperson wants to sell. It's got to be well thought out. There's a lot with different products and how you do chemical mode of action. So it should be a well thought out plan with still a sense of financials in mind too. So very, very important.
Well, the sounds like the theme I'm hearing here is consistency is critical. So that's a great lesson for everyone out there. But you don't have it all stuck in your super's head. That's not the place for knowledge to be. It's got to be somewhere where everybody can access it.
Hey, and Gabe, one more point on that too is, especially for younger superintendents, it's critical because they're and we want to see successful young superintendents. And having that plan in place, that roadmap, really helps them. And they're not just relying, sometimes to the detriment from salespeople that come in the door.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're going to have their own agendas, that's for sure. What is the biggest capital expense of a private club in terms of agronomy, guys?
Well, bunkers. I mean, we see it all the time that, bunkers have been, everyone says they're a hazard. Well, yes, but they're the big playability of a golf course are the bunkers. And we see where lack of maintenance or lack of focus has really turned bunkers into a bigger capital improvement, and all of a sudden it's where it might have been just $3,000 or $4,000 a year to keep the sand up or keep that labor into them. Now it becomes $500,000 worth of fix.
Yeah, I remember we had courses in Texas that we'd put these tasking studies together for labor, and each rain event, because the bunkers were so bad, they'd spend 80 hours, man-hours, repairing bunkers. Wow. They were already bad, and they still were bad after they fixed them. So rebuilding bunkers, and they've got some outstanding liners that are out there in the business, the industry now that you can use that are really beneficial. And that's probably one of the biggest things on capital that we've seen out there.
Yeah, I was actually just at a club in Northwest Indiana last week, and that was they were going to start having the maintenance crew track their time because they were trying to figure out, well, is it worth us, putting that capital investment into the course? And of course, the greenskeeper's like, yes, we need to do this because every time we get an inch of rain, we're out there, for a couple hours a day, just trying to get these things playable. Peter, I know some of your courses just went through some bunker renovations. In fact, my own course, Carrollwood here in Tampa, just had some bunker work done to it. So what are some of the things that you guys are looking for, some of the systems that you're putting in place with the concert properties?
Yeah, I mean, Bill and Dean probably could talk at more length and expertise than me, but I would say we've been putting billy bunkers in at a number of our locations. We're looking to make a big impact on the quality of the bunkers, the playability, the way they look, the way they play, and then what they said before about cutting down on the labor hours to having your guys spend all their time fixing drainage and washout and shoring up the sand in the bunkers. That's a nightmare, right? And so we've been doing some of that. And then, of course, right when we meet a private club, they usually have a wish list of capital improvement projects that the board's been thinking about assessing their members for and doing a big project. I would say most of the time, not even just some of the time, most of the time on the board's list nowadays is we got to do a bunker renovation throughout the golf course. Okay, we'll do it. And so that's a pretty common issue for us.
Yeah, I bet it is. Billy bunker, let's talk about that. Can you guys break down for folks that aren't initiated in what makes a billy bunker and what the technology is there?
Well, there's the billy bunker, which we certainly it's very similar to the capillary concrete. So those two are very similar. They use an aggregate, and then the one aggregate's coated. The other one is a concrete. But that billy bunker is lined with that aggregate. All the drainage is done underneath it, and the whole purpose of that is that vertical movement of that water through that aggregate And rather than when it rains really hard and off that flashed up face, it goes down vertically through that stone so it doesn't wash out that face, and there's no contamination. And this goes back to just keeping the system clean in the bunker sand. You can look at one of those type liner bunkers and stand in the fairway and look out and go, boy, did you just put new sand in your bunkers? And sand could be 3-4 years old.
Wow.
So you really, your investment, and the superintendent was talking about tasking and doing the labor, that return on that investment, if you do not have to spend on sand and drainage and labor, that return on investment is 3 to 5 years. I don't know what you, Peter, have penciled it out, but it's pretty quick when you start talking about flashed up bunkers too.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quick. That's worth doing for sure. Looking for the silver bullet on issues is cashing a false dream. What does that mean to you guys?
Well, I hear it all the time, and when I go into to golf courses where it's everyone's excited because whether it's one thing that's going to make their golf course better, and what I try to explain to them is that it's never one thing, but it's a combination of things that'll make your golf course better. And that is always something it's been hard with I guess individuals that have been waiting for a while to get something done, and when they get that done, they think everything's going to be perfect at their golf course. So we just try to help them understand that an example would be green speed we talked about earlier. To get those green speeds, you got to make sure that all your cultural practices and your fertility and your chemical practices are all in line to get to that end goal. It's a lot of times POA has been out there as the enemy of a bent grass green, and everyone's looking for that silver bullet. There's just not one thing in that statement. It's all the things you do together to get to that one level.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what Bill bringing up. That's what's tough about this business, and what makes it so technical is that it's not just one thing. You could have shade being an issue, traffic coming off a green shade. It could be under fertility. It could be poor soils below the ground. So you got to make sure that your superintendent is putting it through that filter and understanding that you got to look at all those negative inputs that would impact that left side of that green, and work towards repairing those things so that you have a healthy part of that green. So good way to look at it, though. It's usually more than one thing.
Yeah. We just had the tournament over at Riviera, the Genesis Open, a couple of weeks ago, and I know that they've been cutting down a lot of trees on that course because they're just starting to get old. Some of those, I think they're sycamores, or there's a specific tree at Riviera anyways. But I know that's a lot of members out there, they probably come and say, why we got to cut down all these trees on the course. What's your answer to that, gentlemen?
We've had some pretty heated discussions on golf courses about trees. And I think when you look at a superintendent that's trying to grow grass, a tree can become an issue. But at the same time, they're aesthetically pleasing. They have they really set the tone for a golf course. So it's really important that you understand that when you go out, you don't take a chainsaw to things. You take more of a scalpel approach where you're looking at, what is the issue, how is this tree affecting that issue, and making decisions with the board on, is it just a trimming exercise we have to go through in this tree, or it is a removal, and do we replace that with other trees, and having a plan more in place. And with technology these days, there's certainly great apps. Sunseeker is one app we use that you can actually track the line or basically the sun movement on the green. So you can look at the trees with a board member and show them, hey, these are really affecting us at this time of year, and work to try to rectify those issues to be able to have healthier turf.
Yeah, Bill, what Bill's bringing up there on Sunseeker, you actually can stand on the portion of the green that is a problem, bring up the Sunseeker, and it's GPS driven, and you can watch the sun. Whether you could be in December, but you want to see June, you can bring June up and find out where the sun settles, so you know what limbs you got to take out. So the technology has helped you to go in there and just take the right limb that hangs out over the green or something versus taking the whole tree down anymore. So that's a great app for the greens chairman to have the superintendent use to help sell that story or take a little bit of that tree down.
That sounds very helpful. Gabe, this is Peter. We were at a club in the upper Midwest recently that will go nameless, and I can just testify to how contentious these tree issues can get on a lot of boards. This was a club that had a famous PGA Tour pro as one of its members, so he obviously knows a lot about golf course. He might have even been a designer of it. And he said, we got to take out a bunch of trees. We got shading and difficulty with a bunch of our greens on the back nine. That's the sort of typical issue. The members were so up in arms about all these trees that some of the trees were named after club members, and it got very emotional and personal. It got to the point where the board members I was meeting with literally deferred this tree removal project for several years. They were so afraid to even bring it up at a town hall meeting that, you know, they basically get the tomatoes thrown at them. And so they just ducked the whole tree removal issue for several years.
Wow.
That's how personal it can get.
Yeah. Some trees are named after folks that have passed and things like that. So what was the solution over there, Peter?
I think they finally just cut through it. They put the PGA Tour pro up on the town hall meeting. They brought in top agronomists, guys like Bill and Dean, and said, guys, this is not an emotional issue. If we don't do some culling of the trees here, we're not going to have greens anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to play golf on this top-notch golf course. So let's just move past that. And I think they finally got through it, but it just shows you kind of what you're dealing with when you have 300 or 400 people trying to make agronomic decisions, much less a board of 10 or 12 people who have no agronomic degrees or expertise, but they just feel strongly, right? And everyone thinks they know what should be happening to the golf course, including someone like me. But that's why you bring in Bill and Dean and our top agronomists.
Yeah, I don't pretend to know anything, especially after, like I said, reading through what these guys go through on a daily basis. It's so over my head. It's incredible. It sounds like there's some technology, though, that's coming into the industry to really shed some light and really inform decisions. Would that be the consistent statement for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done some tree studies and for different golf courses where we come in and use that app. And basically, as Dean was saying, looking at it from more of a lens of, hey, we're just not going to come in and take them all out. How do we selectively go through and make sure the right trees are taken out for the biggest benefit? And in some cases, we talk about the type of grass they have, and is it the right grass suited for this, area, and is there a change that may need to happen? So help them in more of the long-term planning on the capital side.
Yeah, it's so important. Well, last point I want to touch on before we wrap up, guys, is another huge expense and something that maybe needs a little bit more careful thought and planning is equipment costs. These mowers aren't getting any cheaper, and all the other machines that are running on a golf course. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, from my point of view, and I know Dean will have some thoughts on this, it is just amazing the cost that's happening on the equipment side, and some of it absolutely warranted for all the technology changes and things they've been able to do to improve the quality of cut and the efficiencies of these equipment. But it is very, very expensive. And I think when we get to properties and look at it, it's really important that we look at finding the right piece of equipment for that golf course. You're making such a large investment, you want to make sure that not only it's the right piece, but even from there, you're going to be able to take care of it and maintain it to get the longest life out of it. But we also have been able to work with our national accounts, and I know Peter has his also, where we work toward the warranty side and the training and part discounts so that we try to keep that cost in control. But it's just critical to find the right piece of equipment that is going to do what you want it to do on the golf course.
I bet.
Yeah, and to kind of build off of Bill's a little bit is that, soups, man, they love equipment. We all love equipment. There's no doubt about it. And we need equipment for everything that takes place on a golf course. But it's making sure that you're putting that equipment that you're trying to ask for, you put it through that filter. What is the real need? There's probably 3 or 4 other pieces of equipment and some that cost less that might do the same kind of job and have similar longevity. So you've got to make sure that somebody else is reviewing that you're putting that through that filter to make sure you're making the right decision. Because some of this stuff is $90,000 to $100,000. They got GPS sprayers now that you literally You can sit on that sprayer, not touch the steering wheel. It'll go through the fairway. The nozzles will come on and off, and then shut back, and it'll turn and go the other way on bentgrass fairway. So the technology coming from ag, it's starting to go into turf quite a bit now. But that's that added expense that you add on there. So you got to make sure you still have a lot of great sprayers, but they don't have to all drive themselves too. So you got to make sure that you're putting it through that filter when you make those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Peter, I'm sure you've gone into some clubs around the country that probably had some worn out pieces. Tell us a little about any stories come to mind there?
Yeah, it's a big part of our process when we get to a club, is sending our agronomy team out to work with the super, or send them out to the maintenance building. What do you got in terms of pieces? What have you been doing? And it varies all over the yard. We get groups that have been overzealous in their purchase of all the latest and greatest. Everything is brand spanking new, and it's probably a little bit of overkill, but there's not much agronomic expertise overseeing them. In other clubs, they're strained for cash. Everyone always asks the golf course maintenance department to cut back, and so they're making do with some old equipment and just trying to keep up, but they really need some new stuff. So it really varies. It's almost always a topic of need from the super. Super always wants more toys.
Sure.
Like Bill and Dean were saying, and so it just varies. But we try to make good relationship with the superintendent, and then I think the boards that I deal with, at least, they're all pretty glad in a transition like we do with these member-owned clubs. They're pretty glad that the experts are coming in to take over. When our VP of agronomy, Danny Gwynn, arrives, or guys like Bill and Dean arrive, it's pretty obvious to these board members, who are typically pretty successful business people, that the experts have arrived. And we've been volunteering and part-timing it, but we don't have any actual expertise at doing this. So you guys take the baton on the golf course issues.
Yeah, that's a wise decision for boards who go that route, I'd say. I can barely mow my own lawn. I started hiring a crew after I had to re-turf it twice. I gave up. So most people are probably like me, I'm guessing. Guys, I really enjoyed this conversation. If folks want to find out more about Golf Maintenance Solutions, how do they go about doing that?
They go to www.golfmsolutions.com. That's our website, and it'll give you a lot of information on our company and the things that we could do for you. It's a whole list of a la carte of different types of services we offer, and then it'll give you a little bit of more history of our company too. So great place to go.
We'd love to, if anyone is interested, they absolutely can pick up our number for there and call. And a lot of times we talk to a lot of different golf courses and just give some advice. If we don't end up working with them, we certainly are more than willing to open to talk about things with them.
Very cool. So definitely check out what Dean and Bill are doing over at Golf Maintenance Solutions. Check out their website. Peter, thank you for coming on. Anything you want to say before we wrap things up?
This is great, Bill and Dean. Thanks for joining. I always learn a lot about agronomy when I'm around you guys, so thanks for sharing some time with us.
Yeah, enjoyed it, guys, very much.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Make sure to check out concertgolfpartners.com to learn about what they're doing, helping inject fresh capital into private clubs out there. Peter, thank you for being on the show and for doing this with us every month, sir.
Great. Thank you, Gabe.
Well, now you're better equipped to go have that next Greens Committee meeting. Thank you once again to Concert Golf Partners for their support of this show for the last couple of years, and really for everything that Peter and his team do for this industry, educating and enlightening us. Just a great partner to have. I'll see you back here, guys, next week. Until then, here's to your membership success.
Private Club Radio is brought to you by Concert Golf Partners, helping to preserve and enhance private golf and country clubs. Concert Golf has the capital, expertise, and private club hospitality experience to help upscale private clubs achieving long-term success and membership growth. For 25 years, Concert Golf has allowed private club members to focus on simply enjoying their club. Visit concertgolfpartners.com to learn more about the recapitalization process.